So how about the nuttiest, most delicious fragrances? Well, that's what I've got for you today. We're focusing on nutty fragrances, and if you want to find out about them, then please stay tuned. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. Yes, today I'm talking about nutty fragrances. Fragrances featuring notes like pistachio, almonds, hazelnuts, walnuts, chestnuts, nuts. Any kind of nuts that I found that I have here in the studio, I am featuring it here in today's video. Let's go ahead and get started. We are going to start with a amber fougere fragrance that features loads of almonds and also hazelnuts. We're going to the house of NILAFAR du Nil. It's NILUFER. This was a fragrance that was featured in the Scent Club kit number 2, and it's a really great fougere fragrance that's warm and spicy. It does feature vanilla, almonds, lavender, hazelnuts, heliotrope, cinnamon, cedar, myrrh, and musk. It's really great, created by Chris Maurice, but it does have that barbershop effect, but it is definitely really delicious and warm and spicy and nutty as well. So next we're going to the house of Zoologist Perfumes. It's CHIPMUNK, this one right here. So this is a very woody fragrance and also very nutty, and it does feature a very prominent hazelnuts note, but also sweetened up with quince jam. There's a quince note that's mentioned in here, and I feel like I get a jam effect, a quince jam effect, so it sweetens things up. But in addition to those notes, we've got chamomile, oak, guaiac wood, cedar, vetiver, amyris, benzoin, and quince. It's very woody and nutty with that sweetness with the quince. Really wonderful CHIPMUNK. So next we're going into very gourmand territory. We're going to the house of XERJOFF. We've got 2 fragrances here from the house. It's ITALICA first. ITALICA is a really delicious almondy fragrance, but it's very gourmand. Super yummy with saffron, milky notes, bourbon, vanilla, toffee, and of course it's an overdose of almonds. XERJOFF does really great gourmand fragrance, and this is one of their best. It's been pretty popular from within the last couple of years. So it's ITALICA from XERJOFF. Next we've got a fragrance called STARLIGHT, this one right here. STARLIGHT is also really yummy with almonds, but it's different. It's an overdose of almonds and cardamom, and there's also amber here, cedarwood, cinnamon, but I also get a caramelly vibe, which they don't mention, which creates the very gourmand effect. It's not as gourmand as ITALICA, but still very gourmand here, spicy, woody, nutty, and creamy caramelly. So it's STARLIGHT from the house of XERJOFF. Then we're going to the house of PARFUMS. It's PEGASUS. There are gourmands here, but not all of them are gourmand. This is not a gourmand, but it's definitely kind of, once again, a warm amber fougere-like fragrance with the bitter almonds note, and there's lavender in here as well to create a bit of a fougere-like vibe. But it's loads of bitter almonds with vanilla, lavender, sandalwood, and heliotrope. If I haven't mentioned heliotrope, if you see it appear in fragrances, it does have a bit of an almondy effect. It's a powdery floral note. It's purple, and they usually combine it with almonds to intensify the almondy effect, and it definitely works here. But it does create a powdery, experience, and this is definitely very powdery. So PEGASUS is a male-targeted release, but definitely can be worn by women, featuring almonds. Up next, going to the house of DURGA, it's Pistachio here. So Pistachio is a pistachio overdose from this house. It was launched as a limited edition. They relaunched it as a permanent collection fragrance. Definitely gourmand, but once again, not uber gourmand. You have pistachio listed here several times in the notes breakdown, and then you've got roasted almonds, patchouli, and vanilla cream. So it's very creamy and nutty. The pistachio kind of acts like a bit like a creamed pistachio because you've got that vanilla cream, and then it amplifies the nuttiness with the roasted almonds in here, so there's a slight light smoky touch with that whole roasted almonds experience, and then the overdose of patchouli as well. And with the whole combination, it creates a bit of a Mugler Angel pistachio edge vibe. So really super delicious. It's pistachio from DURGA. Up next, going to the house of Histoire de Parfum. This is 1725 Casanova. Another warm amber fougere, kind of a gourmand fougere here. And we've got lavender, licorice, almonds, vanilla, and amber. Once again, it's quite powdery, and it does smell a bit like Italian pastries or cookies and things like that. There's a delicious vibe about this one, and it's the fact that there's the amber, vanilla, and almonds to create this effect. Perhaps they've laced it with some licorice and lavender, but definitely has fougere-like vibes, but it's a different take on a fougere. So it's 1725 Casanova from the house of Histoire de Parfum. Then a new house that we spoke about several weeks ago. It's from the house of Giardini di Toscana, and it's Blue Indaco, this one right here. So if you remember, my guest was telling me that this reminded him of marzipan. It reminds me of marzipan, yes, but more of a dry form of marzipan. And I mean that because it's a very powdery, dry fragrance, and marzipan is usually a bit more syrupy and paste-like, but definitely does imagine a very dry marzipan. But this fragrance is super delicious like most of their other fragrances, and it features notes of muscanone, habanolide, ambraxan, almonds, vanilla, frangipani, bergamot, pink pepper. There's a little bit of a tropical floral vibe in here, but it's definitely full-on gourmand and a nutty, almondy, marzipan-like gourmand. So this is a Blue Indaco from the house of Giardini di Toscana. Super delicious fragrance. Moving on to the house of Acro with the dark. This is dark, meaning dark chocolate, and basically it's the combination of dark chocolate with hazelnuts, but along the way you also experience cocoa, cinnamon, and vanilla to give you a kind of a chocolatey, sweet, syrupy, nutty, gourmand experience. It's really, really delicious. Really love this one. It smells great, and the way it smells, you almost want to eat it, kind of a thing. So it's dark from Acro. It's a great house. I really enjoy the fragrances of that house. They do have some great releases. Let me know if you're a fan of that house. All right, moving on to the house of Etalibra Orange. We're talking about frustration here. So this is kind of a different take on something like Maison Margiela's By the Fireplace. It's a little more intense and heavy with this one, and it does feature a little bit of cumin with cinnamon. There's a boozy note of rum, vanilla, along with vanilla absolute, cistus absolute, chestnut wood accord, bourbon vetiver. So it's super delicious with the vanillic touches, very ambery, very spicy. It's warm, spicy, can be considered a bit of a holiday-ish fragrance because it does smell like holiday spices and things like that, but definitely has that chestnut smell in here, which kind of with all these notes does remind me a little bit of By the Fireplace, but they're different fragrances in the end. But either way, Etalibra Orange, a super delicious, nutty fragrance from that house with frustration. Then we're moving on to the house of M. Micallef. This is Secrets of Love Gourmet. Are you familiar with this one? So this one is also focusing on chestnuts, but this time we're really focusing on charred roasted chestnuts. You know how chestnuts are roasted? Roasting chestnuts by the fireplace and things like that. This is definitely that idea. It's vanilla with leather, incense, chestnuts, oud, labdanum, violet, and raspberry. But for me, it's like the real idea of chestnuts. Chestnuts is not a delicacy here in the States. I grew up with them when I was young. I really love the taste of them. And I kind of remember the smell when they're getting burned from the outside. The shell is burned so you can peel it open, and inside is that whole fleshy, nutty chestnut meat, that's what I call. And so it's super delicious inside. And here you got that effect, but with a gourmand edge to it, because in the end they're combining the smells of the roasted chestnuts with cooking desserts and ingredients that you would use to bake and create sweets and things like that. That's how this one wears and experiences. So either way, Secrets of Love Gourmet from the house of M. Micallef. Definitely a unique experience and very chestnutty. But moving on to the house of Tiziana Terenzi, it's Al Contrario, this one right here with the upside down bottle. As you can see, this is the only upside down bottle they have, I believe. And it's a gourmand, and it's a nutty gourmand for sure, with cacao pods, malt, vanilla, sugar cane, tonka beans, hazelnuts, ebony wood, orchid, sandalwood, and benzoin. So it's a super soft, creamy, nutty fragrance, and it has sugary touches, vanillic touches, and definitely that very distinct hazelnutty smell in here. But along the way, you'll also experience some cacao and chocolatiness in there. Very ambery and woody when it's drying down. Definitely one of the more popular fragrances from this house. Only problem with this one is it is a 50 ml bottle, so it is double the price of normal fragrances from Terenzi that are in a similar bottle. Normally it would be like this, but this one is like this, obviously. I don't know why they did that, but it's some kind of a trick. I think it's contrary. I think it means contrary, and that's why they put it upside down. But either way, a really great, delicious gourmand fragrance from Terenzi, Al Contrario, and that is at the number 12. But this is not a rank list, guys. But moving on to the house of Maison Margiela, this is By the Fireplace. mentioned it already. Definitely something that a lot of people love. One of the best from this house, one of the most popular. And it's definitely the idea of chestnuts roasting by the fireplace. But for me, when you compare these two fragrances, they're nothing alike, whereas they both have a chestnutty note in it. This is definitely much more niche and really utilizing the smoke. And by the fireplace is smoky, but if you compare these two, you'll notice a difference. This is real smoke, and here it's almost like smoke light kind of a thing. Yeah, a lot of people consider it smoky because it's the idea, but definitely not necessarily very smoky when you compare it to that one. But definitely a really great gourmand here. It's super delicious, nutty, vanillic, ambery, balsamic, and one of the best from Maison Margiela. This is by the fireplace, and that's Maison Margiela's really great, delicious gourmand fragrance. All right, next up, going to the house of Baruti, it's Perverso. So Perverso is a very coffee, cocoa, nutty, boozy, caramelly fragrance. Definitely has all these ideas. It's almost like you're throwing all these ingredients into a bowl. You're gonna mix them up, you know? That is the smell you get. So there's all kinds of things happening. For sure it's boozy. For sure it's nutty. A little smoky here as well. Chocolate all over the place. Coffee as well. It smells like coffee. Perhaps you're brewing it where you're mixing the bowl, or maybe you're actually sipping on coffee that you just poured into a glass and you're mixing all these ingredients to come up with some kind of a unique, item for dessert or something. But it does act very holiday-ish as well. And in the end, it's a really great gourmand in the way of how Baruti makes fragrances. So this is Perverso from Baruti. A really wonderful offering. Very complex fragrance. There's a lot going on there. But moving on to the house of Cartusia, this is Terra Mia. This one right here. This has been a favorite of mine. It's kind of an alternative to something like Intense Cafe. It also reminds me a little bit of now discontinued Cafe Tuberosa by Atelier Cologne. And this is, to me, the nutty take on it. It's got rum, roasted nuts. It's got coffee. It's got hazelnuts, vanilla, rose, amberwood, and orange blossom. It's super delicious, but if you like the idea of Intense Cafe, Cafe Tuberosa, but you want it with a nutty edge to it with loads of hazelnut, this is definitely one for you to try because it has a very, very prominent hazelnuts note. Just imagine, if to me it's more like Cafe Tuberosa rather than Intense Cafe, so take that fragrance, remove some like the tuberose note, and add a bunch of hazelnuts, and you get Terra Mia. So that's Terra Mia from Cartusia. Let me know if you're a fan of that one. This next fragrance, I don't know what's going on with it, but I'm featuring it here because there are some stock out there. And I'm at the very bottom of my bottle because it's super delicious and I love the way it smells. To me, it reminds me of simple syrup because that's how the smell is, but there's definitely a nuttiness under there because it features walnuts. This is Secret Sucre from the house of Molinard. Have you gotten your nose on it? It's so, so delicious. This is really, really delicious. Also very, very cozy and calming. This is one of the most comforting fragrances that I have in my collection because it reminds me of simple syrup. And simple syrup is basically something that I grew up with. My mom used to make it all the time when she was baking baklava. But this is caramel, walnuts, vanilla, tonka beans, cashmere wood, nougat, powdery notes, benzoin, amber, sandalwood. So to me, it's almost like you're taking this simple syrup, making it, but you're throwing in some ingredients that will intensify its gourmand effect. That's what this one acts like. Definitely very sugary, syrupy, and also nuttiness and nougat and all these other kind of notes that come in to kind of give you a bit of a more gourmand edge. Really, really delicious fragrance. This is Secret Sucre from Molinard. Hopefully you guys can find a bottle. I think it's a great fragrance. I'm hoping to find a bottle as well. But I do remember or recall hearing that they are redoing all their bottles, so we might not be able to get some until they're redone. Moving on to the house of Tiziana Terenzi, once again, this is Borea, this one right here. So we've got a kind of a tropical coconutty nutty fragrance with loads of coconut. There's almonds, pears, plums, vanilla, musk, tuberose, freesia, jasmine, rose, and oak moss. So Tiziana Terenzi fragrances are very, very complex. They throw in everything in there. And this is very fruity, floral, tropical, nutty, coconutty kind of a combo in very, very powdery form. It's very intense, long-lasting, and super, super delicious and nutty. So Borea from the house of Tiziana Terenzi. Check that out if you don't know it. We're going to the house of Pearlescent Parfums with Baklava, this one right here. And this Baklava is super delicious. It doesn't really remind me of the smell of baklava, but it's actually a really delicious gourmand. It kind of hints at it a little bit. It's got sweet orange, bergamot, cherries, almonds, pistachio, neroli, baklava, accord, honey, and vanilla. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in here. It's a bit fruity, very nutty, bit orangey, and of course citrusy things in there as well, and very vanillic. And of course the pistachios and the almonds are very, very prominent here. Pistachios are really traditionally very much used in baklava, and also almonds. And to me, this is a really delicious gourmand fragrance that has all of these things going for it, with the hints of baklava and other things as well, and very much nutty. So baklava from Pearlescent Parfums, really love that fragrance. It does remind me a little bit of pistachio from T.S. and Durga, a little bit. Moving on to the House of Van Cleef & Arpels, it's Bois d'Amande, this one right here. This one is vanilla, almonds, cedar, musk, and lemons. There's also a major woody component about this fragrance, and I think the almonds kind of is very smooth and creamy, and there's probably like sandalwood in here to create this very smooth and polished effect with its nuttiness and gourmand touches and things like that. Although there is cedar here, I believe there's also the sandalwood note, because it's where it's very, very creamy, like there's a smooth creaminess about it, but along the way you'll experience lemony touches because it starts out a bit fresh with lemons, and of course muskiness throughout the fragrance as well. It's not one of my favorite fragrances from this house, but I think this is a very quality fragrance, and those of you that like the idea of nutty, kind of almondy, woody fragrances definitely need to try Bois d'Amande. So Bois d'Amande from the House of Van Cleef & Arpels. If you've noticed, the list is mostly almonds because those are probably the most popular nutty notes that are used, followed by hazelnuts. And also, if you notice, I left off some nutty fragrances that are not leaning delicious and gourmand. And there's been a kind of an onslaught of vetiver fragrances featuring almonds, so I've left those off. But this next fragrance is one that I featured in one of my Scent Club kits, number 4, which sold the most. This is Jardin de Misva from the House of Nuit Nomade. This one's kind of bordering gourmand, but it's dates, almonds, rose, saffron, cardamom, and nutmeg. This smells great in the heat to me. It shines, it kind of projects. It's definitely very almondy and also sweet, kind of syrupy date-like. But the rose comes in to create this kind of a Middle Eastern dessert effect. Rosy, almondy, and also, you know, nutty. And then there's the saffron to give you that aromatic spiciness and a bit of a leather touch here. It's so, so good. It does have a bit of tartness as well, so most likely there is some citruses in here that's creating that. But it's a great, great fragrance. One of my favorites from this house. So it's Jardin de Misva from Nuit Nomade. Then going to the House of BDK Parfums, it's a Velvet Tonka, this one right here. This had to be here because it's all very nutty, and it's also bitter almondy, but I think that's coming from the tonka bean. So it's almonds, tonka beans, vanilla. There's also tobacco-ish touch here, orange blossom, rose, and amorous. Super, super combination of notes. Very, very cozy, comforting, and very deliciously nutty. And I like this combination. Almonds and tonkas do go together. Almonds and heliotrope goes together as well. Here we're getting a really yummy, nutty, delicious gourmand fragrance, and throws in some tobacco-ish touches and citruses and citrus floral notes and other floral notes. A really great fragrance. It does kind of also act a bit like Jordan almonds. I don't know if you guys have noticed that, but either way, this is yummy. This is a Velvet Tonka from the House of BDK. So we've got a couple more left here. This is Kayali's Yum Pistachio Gelato. This one right here. It's focusing on, of course, pistachio, but this is much more than the nuttiness. There's a lot of stuff going on in here. It's whipped cream with marshmallows, cotton candy, lohum, pistachios, ice cream, bergamot, hazelnuts, pears, rum, cardamom, tonka beans, sandalwood, cacao. Very, very complex fragrance created by Olivier Cresp and Sebastian Cresp. And it's super delicious and very, very smooth and creamy and gourmand-like. But with the nuttiness there, it's supposed to be the reinterpretation of pistachio gelato, which is one of my favorite gelatos to have ever when I travel to Italy. Love this stuff. I can't get enough of it. 2-3 scoops, yum. And this kind of reminds me of that, but with a lot more stuff going on in it because they've got so many different notes going in there. So this is Kayali's Yum Pistachio Gelato 33. And then finally, we're ending the list with Lumari's Almeria, this one right here. And this is definitely a very almondy, caramelly gourmand with loads of tobacco. Tobacco is key here, and it's kind of ashy, so you're going to get this kind of ashy, dirty experience contrasted next to the gourmand touches of the almonds and caramel, but you'll also have cinnamon, black pepper, vanilla, so it's kind of spicy, vanillic, syrupy, almondy, nutty, and definitely very, very smoky, ashy, because the tobacco is very, very prominent. So it's kind of contrasts here. They're experiencing and they're kind of pulling the fragrance in multiple directions, but you end up enjoying this kind of a tobacco-ish fragrance with these kind of gourmand and nutty notes. So Almeria from the House of Lumari. That is the last fragrance we're talking about today. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. If you have any questions or comments, please do list below. Please let me know what you thought about these fragrances that are featured in today's video. Are any of these your favorites? And then also let me know what's missing from the list. I know there's a ton of nutty fragrances out there, but this is what I had in the studio to put this video together. But if there's anything missing that you love that I did not mention today, do put a comment down below so I can find out. Either way, guys, thanks so much for watching today. If you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye.